Everybody, we begin here tonight with two very different endings for two different migrant families in Western New York. We have an update on a husband, wife, and their kids who were detained in a very small cell on this side of the Canadian border for almost 3 weeks, then separated for months. Well, now they are reunited and living together in Canada. So it was back in early April that we told you about Investigative Post reporting that the family with young children was held at the Rainbow Bridge for weeks beginning in mid-March. They're originally from El Salvador and were accused of using fake documents to try to get into Canada because their names didn't match their birth certificates. But that was only due to marriage. The family was put in a cell near the Rainbow Bridge with only 4 cots, 1 toilet, no windows, no shower for 2 weeks. When they tried again to get into Canada, U.S. authorities held them once again for another week inside that cell. Now, the father was eventually sent to an ICE detention center in Batavia. After a brief stay at a shelter here in Buffalo, the mom and the kids got into Canada, and we have now learned that the dad got out of custody and has been reunited with that family in Canada as well. So we'll talk about that more in a moment. But meanwhile, just today, Investigative Post reported on a new and shocking development out of that same ICE facility in Batavia. A man who was held there has been deported now to a notorious prison in El Salvador, despite a federal appeals court saying he should not be sent there. Back on May 7th, ICE was trying to deport him. The court said Jordan Melgar Salmarone could stay here as his case proceeds. But 28 minutes after that order, ICE still put him on a flight and sent him to El Salvador. An ICE Buffalo spokesperson calling it a, quote, communication error. This is, of course, similar to what happened with Kilmar Abrego Garcia, who has become a bit of a household name in this country. He was the man living in Maryland who was also deported to El Salvador, despite a U.S. court prohibiting that for fear of his life. So far, the Trump administration has refused to work with El Salvador to bring him back. Shoemaker from Investigative Post joins me live here tonight. He's been covering both of these stories. And I want to ask you about this man who, was sent from Western New York to El Salvador in violation of a federal court order. I want to ask you about his background in a moment. But first, just to that point, it seems really surprising that this could happen again, right? Federal judges give out an order very explicitly, and the government does the opposite. How did this happen?
Yeah, so really what we're seeing in the Trump administration is the administration wants as many people deported as possible. That's kind of given a blank check to DHS, Department of Homeland Security, ICE, and the other affiliated agencies. They are using whatever means necessary to deport as many people as they possibly can to appease President Trump. That includes arresting people in courthouses. That includes workplace raids. That includes speeding up immigration cases so that they can deport people faster. So Jordan's case here, it was not so dissimilar from many, many other immigration cases that are winding their way through the courts right now. He was trying to get removed, or he's trying to get out of ICE custody. The government says, well, wait a minute, we want to keep you in ICE custody for now because there's some other related federal cases that could affect your case. So we're just going to pause this case. So under the Biden administration, they hit pause. He's in Batavia, and the courts are doing what they do. Trump comes into office, and the attorneys go back to the court and they say, we want to unpause this case, and we have travel documents. We want to deport him ASAP. The government essentially tells a panel of federal judges, these travel documents are good through May 9th. That means we'll give you until May 8th to do what you're going to do with this case. Afterwards, we're getting rid of this guy. So the guy's attorney files a motion saying, hey, wait a minute, let's keep him here while this court case plays out. The judges on May 7th, 2 days before the deportation date that was originally scheduled, the judges agree. They say, yes, this guy can stay in ICE custody in Batavia until his case is done. Well, not 30 minutes after that ruling came down, he was on a plane to El Salvador. Now, the government and ICE are going. The ICE and the courts are going back and forth. The judges are issuing many, many questions in court papers saying, "How did this happen? Who knew what when? What happened on this timeline and that timeline?" And ICE is attempting to answer those questions. However, they have not yet answered the key question, which is, why was this deportation flight? Why was this man deported on May 7th instead of May 9th?
I want to ask you a little bit about his background, because a lot of people watching will say this guy entered the country illegally. He went through the process, and at some point he was likely to be deported, right? The issue here is that the judges said you can't do it this way right now, and they did it anyway. But what do we know about the guy's background?
Yeah, the key point here is that this is a violation of due process. That's what advocates will tell you. That's what the man's attorney will tell you. That's the story here. His rights were violated. He had a right to be in this country while his case played out, and that was violated. He might have ended up being deported anyway. The facts of this case are that he, at one point as a child, entered the country illegally. He was later deported after a difficult period of time. He's from a very poor area of El Salvador. He grew up in poverty. Federal prosecutors even said he didn't have enough food or clothing growing up. His stepfather was abusive. His stepfather at one point tried to kill his mother.
Shot her, right?
Shot her, exactly. He witnessed all of this. Very traumatic. The federal prosecutors in court papers say this is a very traumatic upbringing for a child. He gets into some trouble as a teenager. He spends some time in juvenile detention. He's deported after he gets out of juvie. Well, after he is back in El Salvador, his stepfather, and this is according to his lawyer and to court papers, his stepfather is hunting him. So his option was either get killed by my stepfather, or I can go seek protection from the MS-13 gang. He falls in with the gang. He's with the gang for a while. They make him do various drug sales and other errand work, as it were. And eventually he escapes back to the U.S., quote unquote, seeking a better life. That's according to the prosecutors. Once he's back in the country, he has left the gang. Gang members catch up with him, and they beat him up. They beat him with a metal bat 26 times, kicking and punching him, really doing the works to him. And they say, okay, you're out of the gang. That's your punishment. We've beat you within an inch of your life, and now you're done. So he's out of the gang, and federal prosecutors say this in court. He has turned his life around. He's married. He's got kids. He's got a job. He's a quote-unquote religious family man now. He's a Christian. And he's living in Virginia. He's working as a roofer, and he's raising his family. He's the sole provider for that family. Until after he has a gun charge. He says he found a gun somewhere. He picked it up. He never fired the gun. He gets picked up on the gun charge. That's how he ends up in ICE detention.
And prosecutors were saying all the way through that this is a good guy, judge, be lenient on him, that sort of thing. I really encourage everybody to read that full story at investigativepost.org. It is remarkable. I only have a little bit of time left, but I do want to transition to the story we mentioned off the top. This family right here, you've been following their story. They're all back together in Canada right now, right?
Yes, they have been after a makeshift detention at the Rainbow Bridge, after ICE detention, after a stay in the shelter, after difficulty at the Canadian border, which by all accounts was just Canadian officials not understanding Spanish. They didn't understand how various documents were made and written in El Salvador. The lawyers have finally worked out the legal issues. They have been reunited in Canada. There is, however, a bittersweet ending to this story. In order to get out of ICE detention, Marcos, the man you see there, he had to raise a $12,000 bond to get released from Batavia. In order to do that, he relied on friends, family, etc. One of the people who helped him was his sister-in-law, who sold a car to help him raise that amount of money. He makes it over to Canada. Shortly thereafter, his brother is arrested by ICE.
Again, investigativepost.org, you can read this story. So many of these stories, they are difficult ones. J. Dale Shoemaker, thanks so much for coming in. Have a good weekend.
Thank you.
Thanks.